Thank you. Yeah, so here we are, a few days into this year. And usually it's a time of taking stock, of noticing, anticipating. The new calendar gets put on the wall, or at least it used to in the olden days. And we take a little bit of a closer view at what's been and what's to come and where we are in this moment. What is this? What am I learning? What have I learned? How is wisdom showing up in my life? How is my view of my life shifting and maturing? So I don't have to say that 2025 was an incredibly challenging year in terms of seeing unskillful and harmful behavior acted out on a massive scale. And 2026 is looking like it might be more of the same, at least so far. And so what are we learning about ourselves in this time as part of different systems and communities, as individuals? One of my root teachers, Ayakema, calls life an adult education school, and points out that we get schooled whether we want to or not. And so the question is, do I ignore that teaching? Do I want to run from it? Do I want to turn the page, close the book, or do I want to use it? Do I want to stay on the path of wisdom? So wisdom born of experience and understanding in the Buddhist teachings is called right view or wise view. So this is the kind of wisdom that doesn't come without really deeply understanding suffering, and it doesn't come cheaply. It's actually our greatest wealth. And so we're starting the year, Inside Community of the Desert is starting the year with an exploration of the Buddha's path of practice that develops and nourishes wise view. And that's the Eightfold Path, the Noble Eightfold Path. So I want to locate the Noble Eightfold Path for a moment. So the first way of doing that is to locate it where it lives, which is in the Four Noble Truths. So it's just not that easy being human. Life involves a lot of pain and struggle. We lose what we love. We have to endure what we don't love at all. We don't live forever. We have to constantly maintain this body, and it still gets sick and wears out. And this is the first noble truth. This is the truth of dukkha. And most of our pain, mental and emotional, comes from craving things to be different other than they are, or wanting them to be always pleasant, or pushing away and not acknowledging what's actually here. And that's the second noble truth. And then there's a way to relate to our experience that eases and eventually uproots this kind of suffering. The truth that freedom is possible, and that is the third noble truth. And the fourth noble truth is that there is a path out of the woods. There's a path of practice that leads to that freedom, and this is the Noble Eightfold Path. And this was the focus of the Buddha's teachings. He was very clear. He said on more than one occasion, I teach suffering and the end of suffering. That was his field. That was his specialty. Mm-hmm. That's what he wanted to teach because he thought it was of the most benefit. Not how to read minds or make more money or be more popular or always get what we want, but how it is that we suffer or experience dukkha, and how it is that we become free. And really importantly, how it is that we do this for ourselves, because no one can do it for us. So that's our exploration, this path of practice that leads to more freedom. So for today and the next 7 weeks, we're going to focus on this path, a path from clinging to letting go, a path from greed to generosity, from aversion to equanimity, from hate to love, from ignorance to wisdom, from anxiety and fear to an increasingly peaceful heart. And this path belongs to each of us, all of us. And it's the Buddha's ennobling path. So we call it the Noble Eightfold Path, and I like the teaching that it is ennobling. It lifts up our highest self and our capacity. And so the places on the path are wise view, wise intention, wise speech, wise action, wise livelihood, wise energy, wise mindfulness, and wise concentration. And you may hear me in this talk, or other teachers use the word right instead of wise. That was sort of the more usual translation up until recently. But wise or right, it's really just same word in Pali, which is sama. And in English, of course, right can have a lot of baggage, judgments and moralizing, and you have to do it this way. So if you hear me or another teacher talk about right view or right speech, just think in terms of appropriate, fitting. This is the right tool for the job. This is the thing that will help. And so this path of practice, this is the how of practice, not the goal itself, but the technology that we use to approach the goal. And it's not dogma, it's not static, it's a teaching that becomes alive through our practice of it, how we choose to live. And we have this wonderful choice I mentioned a few months ago, just this remembering, oh, today I can practice the Eightfold Path. Oh, right now, in this moment, I can choose to relate with interest and curiosity to what's here in my life, instead of just letting life happen to me, resigning myself to it, or running after temporary pleasures, fighting what I don't like and what's uncomfortable, and numbing myself when I'm confused. When I don't know what to do, when I don't know how to respond to what's here, I can practice the Eightfold Path. And it will never be a waste of time. As I notice myself experiencing despair, anger, discouragement, compulsions to be informed or entertained or distracted every moment of the day, or whatever it might be, there's that beautiful invitation in my heart. Come back to the path. Come back to the practices that you know nourish and support you. Whatever is here, we have a choice in how we relate. The world around us keeps changing and unfolding, challenging us, and that's its nature. That's what it does. And then also, I am changing and unfolding and capable of responding to challenge and relating in new ways. And the path is a place to put my feet down in the storm. So you don't have to learn the path by heart, but if you did choose to remember one of the Buddhist lists, this is probably the one to do, because it's so foundational. It's the first one I memorized, and I didn't actually actively memorize it. I just kept going to Dharma talks and Dharma talks and Dharma talks and hearing them enough that it's like, oh yeah, I guess I kind of know that now. But what's important is that the practice is what the path is pointing to, what the words are pointing to, what the steps are pointing to. The lists are just a way to remember, to remind ourselves. I do want to focus on one aspect of the list, and that is that it can be seen in three parts: a wisdom part, an ethical part, and a concentration part. So the wisdom factors of the path are where we're starting right now, with wise view and wise intention, sometimes called wise thought. And then the ethical, the sila, the relational factors are wise speech, wise action, wise livelihood, how it is that we relate to our world, ourselves, and other beings. And then there are the concentration factors, wise energy, wise mindfulness, and wise concentration. And why I want to bring this up is because it really helps illustrate how the path works, because each group nourishes and supports the others. So behaving ethically not causing harm, being kind and compassionate, helps the mind become calm, helps the mind and heart be at peace. A mind and heart that's at peace becomes calm and joyful, which is a support for mindfulness and concentration because there's less agitation. There's some stillness, there's a foundation for concentration, gatheredness, collectedness to arise. And a calm and collected mind is capable of deep and clear seeing, which results in wisdom. So then we're back at the beginning of the path again. So our wisdom deepens, our ethics deepen, our concentration deepens, and you can look at it almost like a spiral, or you can think of it like the 8 strands of a cable or a rope that wind together, becoming stronger and stronger, that can carry us to where we want to go. So I love to snorkel, and I've mentioned this before, but it feels like meditation to me. It's a good analogy. It gets a little quiet. You see interesting things that you might not see otherwise. It's quiet, it's focused, it's intimate. And one day I was snorkeling in a beautiful bay, and I was near the mouth of the bay as the tide was beginning to go out. And the weather suddenly shifted. It started to rain, and the water got windy and troubled, and I was being pulled out, and I didn't want to go out. And I was wearing flippers, and I was 20 years younger than I am today, but still, I could not swim against that tide. And salt water was coming in the snorkel, and I began to panic because I could see the rocks up ahead and the barnacles on them, and no space for my body and the rocks to pass each other safely. And so I felt this moment of panic, and just the words came to me: put your feet down. And that's what I did. I put my feet down, and there was enough room, enough space for me to stand without falling over, to regain my footing, to lessen the panic and see where it is I needed to be safe again. And so for me, that's a really good analogy of what we're doing when we step onto the path. We're putting our feet down. So wise view, this is what gives us our bearings so that we can move in the direction of safety. And of course, as I've said, it's the first place on the path, but it's also the culmination of the path. Wise view is the beginning, wise view is the end. Wisdom is the beginning of our embarkation on the path, and it's also the result of being on the path. We have to have some wise view in order to begin our quest for freedom. We have to have some understanding or feeling of the human condition and our own capacity for freedom. And all of us have some wise view. We wouldn't be here if we didn't. We wouldn't be practicing. We wouldn't be interested. We wouldn't show up for an hour and a half on a Sunday morning to consider the Dharma. And as we practice the path, this view strengthens and deepens. Every path begins somewhere. So our view sets the direction that we're going to move into. So the Buddha put it like this: friends, I do not see even a single thing on account of which unarisen wholesome qualities arise and arisen wholesome qualities increase and expand so much as right view. So in the classical teachings, the original teachings of the Buddha, in his words, right view includes understanding the Four Noble Truths, recognizing karma, that our intentional actions have consequences and shape our experience. Seeing causality, that all things arise dependent on causes and conditions, and they pass away or change when the conditions change. And viewing our experience, our human experience, through the three characteristics of anicca, not permanent, dukkha, not perfect, anatta, not personal. And if the Dharma part feels like a lot, don't worry. Just let it wash over you. It seeps in little by little. But the Buddha taught us also to be really selective and careful in our views, and that however we conceive of something, that it's other than that no human view tells the whole story. So I like the example of, if I took out my phone, which I can't believe I didn't bring today, if I took out my phone and started taking selfies, which one of them represents me? And what about the angles and views that I didn't take? Is it any of the pictures I took? Is it all of them? And what about the stack of pictures that I took 10 years ago? And how can an image or a stream of words or a thought or a gene map or whatever it is ever describe who you are, who each of us is? Concepts are truth. Experience gets us closer to what is true. You can hear someone describe an orange or a pear or, my latest favorite, a passion fruit in great detail. What it feels like, what it looks like, what it tastes like. But until you see it and handle it and taste it for yourself, you really don't know what it is. Because we have to have our own experience, our own relationship with something to know it, for wisdom to arise. And so this is why the path is practiced and lived. We familiarize ourselves with it like a map, but ultimately it's about our direct knowing, our own experience, living it for ourselves so that it becomes embodied, like how a dancer's knowledge lives in their core and their limbs. Like knowing what a passion fruit is because you've experienced it for yourself. Like seeing in your own life the mechanisms of suffering and peace. Views are the seed of the actions that we take in the world. The views that we hold condition.
Speak a little louder.
Speak a little louder. Thank you. Thank you. I will. So the views that we hold condition how we respond to our world, to ourselves, to our loved ones, to our communities. Views are really the seeds of our actions. So understanding and being mindful of our views and our perspectives and where we're coming from is so essential to the practice. And so we can bring greater and greater awareness to the views that we are holding. We can ask ourselves, do my views support that next place on the path? The next place on the path being wise intention or wise thought, letting go, harmlessness, kindness, or stated positively, compassion and care and love. And if not, why am I holding on to this view? And is it possible to let it go now? And so beginning a new year, we often ask ourselves, like, what am I holding on to that I don't need anymore? What can I clean out? And the Buddha spoke of the thicket of views that attach to us and that we get attached to. And I like the image of the thicket because it sounds like my mind. Tangled, hard to get through, dense, a place you can get caught on lots of thorns. And the kind of views that we're talking about here are the kind, or he's talking about here, are the kind of worldly views and opinions that we take for truth without examination, that separate us from each other, that are unkind, divided, delusive, deluded. that come from this limited viewpoint of I and me and mine, a sense of righteousness. I'm right, you're wrong, we're right, they're wrong. A tendency toward rigidity, clinging rather than flexibility and a soft touch. What is this? What is this view? So, as so much in life, same thing with views. Less is more, especially if we want to move in the direction of freedom. We have a superfluity of views. Why hold so much? Why hold so many? That's the question that I've been working with. Why hold so much? What would it take for me to let go of some of them or a lot of them? And which views are actually worth holding? Which views are noble? Which views are right? Which views are wise? Which views are appropriate? And what would my year be like? What would my life be like if I just centered a few views? 4 or 5 views. And so I thought about that. And the views that I felt like, okay, these are the views that I could winnow everything down to for now. One is like, I trust the Dharma, that the teachings help reduce suffering for myself and others and lead somewhere good. I trust myself enough to walk this path. I can do this step by step, even imperfectly, even slowly. And I trust that I don't walk this path alone. Experience shows me that. I'm supported by teachers, by friends. Countless conditions. And I believe that every being is worthy of kindness and safety. Even the beings that I don't particularly like. Even myself, even when it's hard. And I trust that my actions matter, that our actions matter, that what I do, what we do, can support goodness in the world. So what if it was just those 5? What would your 5 be, or your 4 be, or your 3 be, or your 2, or even your 1? What's one view? What are 5 views that I'd like to be with, that I believe are wise and appropriate? And then, what views am I ready to let go of? Probably a much longer list. I can review the views, see if they're useful, fitting, appropriate. Why is this even here? Who is this serving? Depersonalizing the old views, letting go of the sense that so many of us have, that because it's my view, that it got in here, that it must be important, and I should hang on to it. How about okay, here's a view. What's the source? How did I come by this view? What views am I holding because someone told me, or everyone else believes it, or the culture told me, or my parents told me, or a bully told me, or a magazine told me, or I told me a long time ago? Does this view, held now, lead to actions that are beneficial to self and others? So the Buddha told the Kalama people, don't believe something just because it's old. Don't believe something just because someone wrote it down somewhere, or because a teacher said it, or because everyone around you agrees. Look at your own experience. Does this view lead to harm or benefit? So he's really asking us to take ownership of our views, to tame the thicket. And I'm emphasizing this because it's tricky, Views have a way of hiding in the thicket and then popping up unawares. What if I committed to the 5 elements of wise view and measured all my other views against them? So you never finish what you start. Wait, I trust myself to walk this path, even imperfectly. No one else gets it. Wait, I don't walk this path alone. The world is hopeless. wait, my actions and the actions of others that come from kindness and love matter. So this is the wisdom that we can count on, because we've seen it in our own experience, and we know where it leads, and it's the only true wealth that we can earn. And when we get carried away by opinions, by fears, biases, the need to be right, when we feel pulled away from center, that invitation is simple. Put your feet down. Reclaim your path. Come back to what you actually know. Come back to the Four Noble Truths. Being human includes dukkha. It includes difficulty, loss, and uncertainty. Suffering deepens when we fight reality, clinging or pushing away. Freedom is possible. Suffering can ease. Liberation is possible. And there is a path that leads in that direction, and that's the Noble Eightfold Path. Not an abstract philosophy, not academics, but a way of orienting to our lives. Ayakema, who I mentioned earlier in the talk, says that life keeps presenting us with the same lessons again and again and again. And she says, instead of blaming, collapsing, or pushing everything down, we can turn toward our experience and say, oh, here you are again. What are you teaching me? So the question becomes, how can I steward my inner world? On what ground do I stand? What views will I hold? What am I learning? And then gently, we clear the thicket. We notice the little views, the opinions, the reactions, the stories that we tell ourselves that don't align with wisdom. And no need to hate them or fight them or make them wrong. We just recognize this doesn't lead to peace. This isn't my practice of the Eightfold Path. This isn't wise view. And we let them go. Just let them drop where they can. That's the beginning of freedom. That's the beginning of walking the Eightfold Path. So let's just take a couple minutes for the words to settle a little bit, and maybe just seeing what comes up for you in terms of your own relation to view. What views might I be ready to let go of? What views do I want to nourish and support and center in my experience and practice? Thank you for your kind attention and practice. And I'd really like to open the floor online and in the room, and just check in what you might like to offer. And we have a mic, and I know people don't like mics, but it will really help folks online to hear. So, Terrence, you have your hand up. I'm going to bring the mic to you. So we're at time, and would just like to close with offering our dedication of merit, and I'm going to put that up on the screen for folks online. Hang on just a second. I got it right there. And if you have that, great. If you can share with someone next to you. If you don't, also good. So we'll just offer this together. And before we close, just want to say thank you for coming, and thank you for supporting ICD, and through your donations and your presence and your volunteering. And yeah, just thank you so much. And it matters. This matters. Okay. Thank you all. And please continue on the path and come next week. I think Beth will be talking about wise intention or wise thought. So hope to see you. Thank you. Take care.